Right guys, hello, another video for you all, a tutorial to help you get RetroArch installed onto your Quest VR headset to do some retro gaming. It's been a hobby of mine for a very long time. As always, you're going to find useful links as well as timestamps in the description of this video, as well as a pinned comment below to help you along. I'm going to start off by saying this, it seems a bit obvious, but a gamepad is going to be a really good idea in order to play the games. A Bluetooth one would be ideal. Technically you could use a wired one, just remember it's a Type-C connection on the Quest, so unless your phone came with a Type-C to Type-A adapter, you'll have to buy one if you're hell-bent on using a wired gamepad. So before we grab RetroArch, really the first step is to have SideQuest software on our computer and our VR headset set up for it. Now, I'm not going to make it part of the tutorial because it'll make it longer than it needs to be. I will give you the link to get to this website so you can download the software, and you can see they've given YouTube links to talk you guys through getting it set up. Many of you, I'm sure, will have done this already to get other games and bits and pieces on your headset. So once you've got that done, we're going to go to the RetroArch website. Again, I'll give you the link. We go to the download section and we want the Android APK file. So we will download the 64-bit version of RetroArch, download it, have it somewhere safe so you know where it is. We're going to need it in a minute. What I can't really help you with, sad to say, I can't give you links to the game files and BIOS files. Don't blame me, blame Nintendo. They love shutting down websites and videos that do this stuff. So it is what it is. Google is your friend. What I could say, whilst I have your attention, is we've got the Internet Archive, which is archive.org. It says Internet Archive is a non-profit library of millions of free books, movies, software, music, websites, and more. Might be worth a browse, just saying. Right, so we'll move on to SideQuest, which we've got set up. My Quest 2 headset is plugged into the computer with a USB cable. We know all is good to go. In the top corner it says device connection status. That's green, we're good to go. So we need to get our APK file. We'll give that a click and we're going to drag it over that green dot. It says drop files here to install. So drag and drop. And it tells me there's one task running. That shouldn't take too long. And we should get a green bar across the bottom any second now. There we go. All tasks have been completed. So that's now installed. We'll cover setting it up in a little bit. Whilst we're here, we're going to click on this folder icon. It says manage files on the headset. That opens this up. So I've got a few bits and pieces on here already. This is like the root directory of the device. I've got some stuff for Cody, some artwork for Cody. I might do another tutorial on that another day. But what I've got is a ROMs folder, and within here we've got subdirectories, so folders for each of the systems that I want the games for, as well as a BIOS file. So you're going to do add a file. We don't want to add a file, we want to add a new folder. So we'll do ROMs and make that folder. So what you can do once you've done that is drag across your folders with games. So N64, I've got DC for Dreamcast. Just drag it across, drop them to upload them. So I'll explain BIOS files more a little bit later when we get into RetroArch, but I just want to have a quick look for the README file I've got in here because it's super useful. So edit that with Notepad++. So this is all listed out. It's telling me the system, so like the Panasonic 3DO, the Commodore Amiga. So it's telling me what the files are called. And then before that, we've got all these numbers and letters, and it seems quite confusing. These are MD5 Checksum. And what that tells me, it's like a unique identifier to tell me that file is that file. There can be another file that's named the same, but that doesn't mean they are identical. So let's head back to my browser. We'll give you another link. So this is MD5 file checksum. So I can drop, let's do the Pana FZ1. Let me drop that in there. And you see it's telling me F47264DD. So let's go back. There's the Panasonic FZ1. So F47264DD. All right, we'll check the rest of it, but it's sounding, it sounds right to me. So I know that the file I have is exactly the same. Right, so we're going to cover that a little bit later in the course because they ask for specific files. The Amiga is a real bitch for it. It's the PUE core is very fussy over which kickstarts BIOS files you have for the Amiga. So MD5 checksums are quite important. Hopefully I haven't lost you, but there's no other way really for me to easily explain it. Right, so we've got RetroArch on there. If you want to install Kodi and other bits and pieces, you can do that now if you want. But I'm going to unplug the Quest 2 headset, put it on, and we can talk you through the rest of the setup. Right, so we have our Quest headset on, and we're going to get on with the rest of the video. I apologise if things get a little bit shaky, but I need to move my head around a little bit to see what's going on in the headset. First thing on the to-do list is to make sure our gamepad's working. So let's go into quick settings, up to the top right, and we want experimental features. So if you've accidentally gone into something else, you can just go in the top left to get the tabs back. It's experimental we want. So let's scroll down with our thumbstick on our controller till it says Bluetooth pairing, and we'll click pair. So put your gamepad into its pairing mode. However you do that will vary from gamepad to gamepad, but click pair new device, and it's going to list all of the Bluetooth devices around your headset, and you can click on your gamepad to connect. If you have already connected your gamepad and it's not working, you can come in here and it will show devices that have previously been connected to reconnect them again. So that's useful to know. Where you can see my 8-bit Do FC30 Pro is connected, so we're good to go. We'll close that down. Next thing to do is to open up RetroArch so we can start configuring it. We're going to go into the app drawer. So it's going to be on all. You'll see all your apps and games, but you're not going to see RetroArch in here. We need to go into the top right, into the drop down menu for unknown sources. Let's do A to Z, just in case like me you got a lot of stuff installed and we're looking for RetroArch. So there it is, RetroArch Arch 64. We'll give that a click. Right, you need to grant access to read external storage, write external storage, so we'll press OK. Allow permissions to access media and files. Yeah, of course we want to allow it because otherwise it won't be able to play the games. Right, so we've done that. I'll just wait for this stuff to clear off the screen. Now I hate this stock user interface, so what I'm going to do on my gamepad is push right on the D-pad. So it's found my gamepad and it automatically binds the keys for us, which is super helpful. So I'm going to do it once more till we're on the gear cog. We can start pushing down on the D-pad till we get to the user interface. So I'm going to press what is the A button on an Xbox pad, and we're going to change the menu driver from GLUI to XMB. Right, undo the B button, which is back, and we'll push left and left again on the D-pad, and push down on the D-pad till we quit RetroArch, and it will save those changes. Now we'll go back in the app drawer, load RetroArch one more time, and it looks so much better this way. So let's just make it a little bit bigger to help you see it in the video. Alright, so I'm going to go back. Alright, so let's go into the online updater, and we're going to update the core info files, and the assets, and controller profiles, cheats if you want, databases, overlays, GLSL shaders. You can see it's downloading the zip files, extracting them out. So whilst it's doing that, we can go up and start downloading the cores. The cores is what's going to actually let us play these retro systems. You know, there's an awful lot of them to go through. So we've got arcade stuff, Final Burn Alpha. So it says CPS1, that means Capcom Play System. So there's a Capcom Play System 1, 2 and 3. Neo Geo. There's MAME, Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator. If you are new to emulation, I seriously suggest you avoid MAME. That's because you have ROM sets, and ROM sets are meant to go with certain versions of MAME. However, what some people do is just download random files, and then they don't know what ROM set it's from, and they don't know what version of MAME to use it from. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated, MAME, so maybe save that for another day. You can do your homework. Try to stick to the more basic stuff like the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, N64, Mega Drive, stuff like that, PlayStation. They're all pretty simple. So as we scroll down, we see there's the Amiga, the PoE. I really like that classic computer. So let's go down on Nintendo. So Nintendo 64, it's saying 64 plus, next, GLES2, GLSE3, or there's parallel N64. So you can have multiple cores for a system. Now people argue over which one's better than the next. You can look this stuff up online. There's plenty of stuff about RetroArch. But for the SNES, I think most of us agree SNES 9X is the way to go. But yeah, you can experiment around with them. I mentioned this in other videos. We can do Quake and Quake 2 and Doom in RetroArch, but we're not really going to bother with that because we can do the VR ports in SideQuest. So we'll just worry about systems like the Dreamcast, which will also do the Atomic Wave and Naomi arcade systems. So we've got Pico Drive there for the Mega Drive and the Mega CD and the 32X, or we can do Genesis Plus. So Saturn's got a few to choose from. Sony PlayStation, we're probably going to want DuckStation. Yeah, it depends on you. What you want to play, the stuff you remember from back in the day, you install the cores that you want. So do the B button to go back, and I'll do it one more time. So what I'm going to do is push right on the D-pad. So we're in the settings part of the user interface. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, keep pushing down on the D-pad till we get to directory. So it's telling me that the system BIOS directory is emulated 0 RetroArch system, but we've already done our BIOS files. We didn't put them in the RetroArch folder, so we're going to click A on here. We're going to do storage emulated 0 and point it to our ROMs directory. And in there we know we've got our BIOS folder, so we'll do that. And we're going to use this directory for the BIOS files. So you can see I created one in here called DC for the Dreamcast BIOSes, and we've got some other folders, but the files are in there. So let's just use this directory, and we need to do B to go back. So whilst we're here, let's do on-screen, is it on-screen display? On-screen overlay. Yeah, we'll turn this off because otherwise when we load a game, you're going to get controls on screen because it thinks you're trying to use an Android phone or a tablet. So let's turn off the overlays. So do B to go back. So let's find input, and we'll scroll down until we get to hotkeys. So confirm quit, required a quit hotkey to be pressed twice to quit RetroArch. We can do that, but I'm pretty sure I know when I want to quit, and I'm going to put specific buttons to do that. So I'm going to turn off confirm quit. It says we've got the menu toggle controller combo, so we'll click A on that. I do start and select together, but there's some other options there, whatever works for you. So I'm doing start and select. You'll see that when we test the game a little bit later what that does. It will let us save our game, quit that game to then load something else. We're going to do a hotkey, so I'll click on that, and it's telling me to push a key down to be the hotkey. So I'm going to do the left trigger, hold it down. There we go. And I'm going to scroll down until we see quit RetroArch. So I'll press A on that. And I'm going to do the right thumbstick. Just hold that down for a few seconds. So when I want to quit RetroArch, I hold down my hotkey, which is left trigger, and push in the right thumbstick together. And that will quit RetroArch completely. You do what you want to do, but that works for me. So we've got other bits and pieces that you can find, but we don't want to make things too complicated. So we'll do B to go back. So those cores should have downloaded. What I'm going to do is load a core up. So let's do the Dreamcast, the Flycast. So I've loaded the core. It says that in the bottom left hand corner that the Flycast is loaded. And we're going to do information and press A on core information. So it's telling me the core name is Flycast. It's for the Sega Dreamcast, manufacturer is Sega. The supported extensions, so all of our game files, depending on what you've got, they can have different endings on them. There might be a zip file. This is telling us which ones will work. So we've got CHD, CDI, ELF, bin, Q, GDI, LST, zip, DAT, 7Z, M3U. Provided your files end with that, there's a good chance they're going to work. So CDI and GDI files are very common for the Dreamcast. Bin and QR as well. They're like a rip of the disk. CHD files, what people will often do is take the GDI file and compress it so it saves space, and ergo you can get more games on. So that's what CHD files tend to be. It's a compressed hard disk image. So we know what game extension files will work with the core. We'll keep going down till it says firmware. These were our BIOS files, so it's saying present, but it was optional. So dcboot.bin. Now it's got dc/dcboot.bin. So that means that our BIOS folder needed to have a folder in there called DC with that file in it, otherwise it won't find it. If you've put dcboot.bin in your BIOS folder, it's not going to find it unless it's in the DC folder. So if you made little mistakes like this, you didn't know because you didn't know until you went into core information, you can go back and put your SideQuest on, connect your headset with the USB, go back to manipulate your files and folders, just create that extra folder called DC and put your file in there. Hopefully it makes sense. So it's telling me I'm missing a few. I'm not really bothered about doing the Sega Naomi. That's an arcade machine, but I do AW BIOS because I want to do a Thomas Wave. There's some actually pretty cool games on there. So yeah, that's in there, the awbios.zip. It's found it, but it had to be in that DC folder as well. It's telling us that dc_boot.bin, which is the BIOS file, it's telling us that MD5 Checksum. So we talked about that at the start of the video, how we can check what our file is. So we can see that unique identifier and we can compare it to ours to make sure we have exactly the file that they're asking us to have. We can lock the install core to prevent any modifications or changes to it. We can back up the core, restore it, delete the backup, or delete the core entirely. So as we've said, there's can be multiple cores for a system, and if you think, oh, I don't actually like this one, I don't need it, you can delete that core. So we'll do B to go back. Right, so let's start adding. We'll go back into the cogs just at the bottom to show the playlists, because this is what we're going to do now. We're going to scan our games and create playlists. So you can actually manage them here. When you create them, if you make a mistake, you can come in here, set the default core to play the playlist, or you can just delete the playlist completely if you're cocked up and start over again. So that's useful to know where that is. Thumbnails is all to do with the artwork. It should find that automatically for you. Hit B to go back, B again. I'm going to keep scrolling across until we've got the scan directory. So we can do it automatically. Go emulated 0, ROMs, point it at the N64 and tell it to scan this directory. I'll just do B to go back, just to point out we can do a manual scan as well, which is actually quite helpful. So again, we can choose the content directory. So do emulated 0, and we'll do ROMs. So let's do PlayStation 1. So we can say scan this directory. We've chosen that. We can choose the system name. We can tell it specifically that it is the Sony PlayStation. There we go. So custom system name, default core, we want to use DuckStation. And the file extensions. So the reason I'm going to do this is because the PlayStation also used disks, and some of you might have bin and Q files. So I tried to explain this before, I'm sure, but the Q file is like the playlist, and if we opened up that Q file in, say, like Notepad, it would list out all the bin files. Now what we don't want to do is scan those bin files because they're not really the game. So it would actually make our playlist super messy. We just want to load the Q file. So we can press A on file extensions and just tell it to scan Q files and ignore everything else. So we'll go across to the right and we've got what is the enter key, second one down. So we're telling it only scan the Q files, and then we can start the scan and it will do it automatically for you and look for the artwork. So do B to go back because I've already done a few. So this is a Commodore Amiga. The game files for this, they keep changing them. The WHD load set, they just keep updating it and the names change. So the database, it's a nightmare. So that's why it hasn't found any artwork. But 007, The World Is Not Enough, USA. So no intro, you'll hear about all these different ROM sets. but they tend to have database entries, so it knows what the games are. It can find the artwork. Now I'm going to push what is the X button on an Xbox gamepad, and you see it's got different artwork. It's done that for me automatically. So let's just have the box art and go across to the NES. Got the SNES, the Virtual Boy, Dreamcast, Mega Drive, so on. So I took the Mega CD games off because I did another video and we actually established they don't look particularly good. So I showed you how we can delete that playlist. We'll go back into settings, down to playlists, manage playlists. So there's Mega CD, Sega CD. Let's just delete that playlist. So B to go back. So when I scroll across now, it's gone. But we'll play. Let's do Super Mario World. So we can set the core association. I need to download a core for this. We can actually do it from here rather than going into the core downloader. So let's do. I think I'm going to want the SNES 9X current. So we can run it. I can hear the sound, unfortunately you can't because the way I'm casting and recording. Start button. Seems to be running pretty well to me. Right, so I'm going to hold down start and select together, which is bring up the options. So I can restart the game. It's like pushing the reset button on the console. We can close the content, which will just quit the game, take screenshots, save state, save where we are in the game, because not all games let you save where you want to. We've got options for the core, on-screen overlays, where we want to display borders, because you've got 16:9, which is widescreen, but pretty much all of these retro games will be 4:3, so you end up with black bars to the left and right, so you can have borders to fill in the black. We can rewind, change the latency, tweak our controls. So it's worth pointing out that you can do like per core settings, so the changes that you make don't have to apply to every single system. You can tailor it to each particular core. So yeah, I'm going to end up rambling and losing a lot of you because there is quite a lot we can go through. But that's basically what you need to know to get up and going and have a little bit of fun with it over Christmas. So hopefully it's helped you out. Have a great day. Have a great evening, whatever you choose to do after watching this. And as always, I'll see you when I see you next. Ciao for now.